Well, good afternoon and greetings from Michigan. Welcome to our webcast today, Transforming E-Learning into E-Performance. My name is Tom Petro. I'm the Business Development Director here at Innovative Learning Group, and I will be moderating today's session. Just a quick overview of who we are for those of you who are on and don't know us. ILG is a performance-first learning company. We've been in business for 16 years. We have more than 175 clients across 35 industries. Now, as a performance-first learning company, we know that not all issues can be solved with training. And what's important is improving the performance of employees. And many times it's not going to be a traditional e-learning course or a virtual instructor-led training course that's needed, but sometimes just some good, well-designed performance support. So today we're going to look at how to take your e-learning and transform it into effective performance support. I am pleased to be introducing Susan Fisher. Sue is a former ILG employee, and she currently works with us as a consultant in learning and performance. She has designed and developed countless training and performance support resources for our clients. I've had the pleasure of working with Sue for many years. And those of you who have worked with Sue in the past or have seen her present at places like ISPI or other learning conferences, you know that she's a super strong advocate of using performance support as the primary method of learning in the workplace. And she's gonna let us know how she feels about that today. So with that, let's get started. I'll introduce you to Sue. Sue, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Tom. And thanks to everyone who's come to our webinar today. I'm happy to be Zooming with you. So what prompted my developing this presentation? Well, the answer is too many requests like this one from an IT project manager. And maybe you've seen requests like this as well during your career. So if you could just take a few seconds and share with us your reaction to that request. Could you make us some e-learning? If you could do it in chat, and please be sure to send this to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see. So I'll give you a few seconds to answer. What do you think of that request? The story of my life. Yeah, assuming e-learning is the answer. Need more info, please. Yes, very good. Okay, wonderful. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to move on to this. What if the project manager had said instead, can you help people learn how to use it? Or maybe even better, could you create performance support for it? So what do you think of when you hear performance support? Again, please share with us in chat what you think of when you hear that term performance support. So we've got somebody who says it's a new term. Somebody else said EPSS, helping employees be productive. An evaluation system of some kind, visuals, diagrams, the tool to be used at the time of apply, learning in the flow of work. Okay, so great, we have a wide range of responses to this, and so I think we're all in the right session today. And here are the goals of my session today. I want to talk about the benefits of performance-based learning to give you some conceptual underpinnings of performance-based learning using the 5 moments of learning need. And then we're going to show how to design an e-performance solution that is accessible at each moment of need using a case study. So first, let's dig into that case study. So first of all, this is a real project that ILG did for one of our clients a few years back. The client is a precision device manufacturer, and they were implementing a new system, some new software called Windchill. And Windchill has been around for a long time. You may be familiar with it. It's a product lifecycle management system. So what was their learning need? So first of all, this system was going to replace a legacy system that they had been using for a long time. It was going to affect their business process. It would be used daily by employees company-wide. There would be 6 different user roles in the system. And of course, there would be a tight timeline. The training had to be ready before the system went live. And of course, the system would be under development right up until go live. So what did we make for them? So we built e-learning for them, so geared to the roles. So there were 6 courses, 1 for each role. They used a presentation approach, basically. There was a mix of all different kinds of content within each course. And there was some support by external performance type assets. So documentation, screencasts that did system simulations and so on. Oh, and by the way, the users had to take this training first in order to be given access to the new system. And they weren't expected ever to return to the training after passing it. Okay, so keep that in mind. And I'm going to switch to the original course, one of the original courses that we did. So here is one of the courses that we made for this project. And this one was done for the role called document owner. And I have disguised the identity of our client, but otherwise this content is pretty much what you'll see is what was in it. And as you can see, there is a scrub bar, so there was audio. This was fully narrated, and the narration was synced with screen animation. So as stuff came on screen. And you can see that there are 4, after the intro, there's 4 general topics. So overview of the library, document owner role and responsibilities, and then a couple of procedural type things like tasks. And let's look, I'll dive into one of these sections, and you can see that we have an intro screen with what you will learn in this section. And then we have the first topic here, which is a background information. What is the process library? The process library is what the document owner would be primarily using. So that's a big part of this. You'll see that we have a illustration that's really just decorative. We continue on to the next screen and there's more of the same. And then finally, we get to this screen where all of a sudden there is a procedure. So how do I navigate to the process library in the system? Here are some steps. And then some links to some of those external assets that were included with the course. Okay, so you get the idea, I think, of the kind of content that was in here. And then I'm going to just scooch on down to the end. There was a check your understanding question or 2 at the end of each section. And then it ended with a summary of what you have learned. So looks pretty standard presentation type e-learning. So what is your reaction? I'd love to hear your reaction to this, what little I've shown you of this course. What's your reaction to this course? And again, if you could put it in chat, that would be great. Lots of words, yes. A lot of content, more like a manual, standard e-learning, boring, same as all trainings. Overwhelming? Need more interactivity? Okay, great. I think we're all on the same page here because yes, I would certainly say the same types of things that you did. I am going to switch back to my slides and hopefully I can do that more smoothly than the last time. So here is what I see is wrong with this solution. Performance support content, what there was of it was mixed with the conceptual stuff. It's meant to be used away from work. Remember, this was used before people even could get on that system. So it's standalone training, and therefore performance knowledge isn't retained and it's not going to transfer to the job. It's not integrated with the computer system that's being trained. We're not seeing the computer system while we're taking this course. And it doesn't provide what's needed at each moment of learning need. So what the heck does that mean? I mentioned it in the beginning. Let's take a look more closely about what that means. So let's take a look at the 5 moments of need. And I'm going to give you an overview if you're less familiar with it, just at least enough to know for the rest of, to understand the rest of this webinar today. So Conrad Gottfredson and Bob Mosher are 2 guys in the learning biz. They've been in the business for decades, and they've been working together for a number of years on the 5 moments of need model and instructional design process. As you can see, here are the 5 moments of need. And before I talk about them, let's talk about the basic tenets of their model. The first thing is learning has a symbiotic relationship with performance. So in other words, new knowledge sticks best when it's being applied. Performance creates learning and builds knowledge. Thus, the best place to learn is in the workflow. That's really the crux of this. Where people learn, when we're talking about workplace learning, they're learning while they're doing. So when we design learning solutions, we want to start with doing and understand that knowledge, information is enabling doing. Okay, so that's kind of a different way of looking at things than we have maybe been used to doing. Okay, so let's look at those 5 moments of need. So apply, this is the first one, the primary, where you have to use your knowledge to do something. New, when you have to learn something for the first time. More, when you have to expand on previous knowledge, get deeper knowledge. 4, solving problems when they arise, being able to do that. And change, maybe the most difficult one is adapting ingrained knowledge to a new way of doing something. So what's the significance of the order of these 5 moments? Well, there really isn't any. They can be done in any order. Usually Gottfredson and Mosher talk first about apply because that's the most important, but we can also meet the other moments of need, or the other moments of need can occur during the moment of apply. So it's a very flexible model. And let's see how it could be applied to our case study example. So let's take one small task from our case studies. A document owner in the wind chill system will need to be able to check out a document for revision in the new system. So let's look at this one task and see that the skills and knowledge that are needed at each point of need, each moment of need. So at apply, of course, they need to be able to have the skill to successfully check a document out of the library. At the moment of new, they'll have to learn the steps for checking a document out of the library, of course. For more, they may, for example, need to understand how the document file in the database is affected when the document is checked out, which may help them at the moment of solve, for example, when encountering an error message, be able to determine the cause and make necessary adjustments in order to successfully check the document out of the library. And change, at the moment of change, what do they need? They need to know how the new system has affected the process of document revision, including the checkout procedure. Okay, so does that make sense? There you can see a simple, very small, discrete task having aspects of it, the knowledge needed for it at every moment of need. And that's what we're talking about here when we are devising performance first learning solutions. So this sounds pretty cool. It sounds like it makes sense, but why are so few of us in the business, in the learning and development business, and so few of our organizations asking for it? Well, there are some obstacles that I've seen throughout my career. The first one being that culture of training. Everybody expects training. Your stakeholders expect training. That's why the IT project manager was asking for e-learning. That's just what we're used to. Second of all, don't know what it is. A lot of your stakeholders will not understand performance-based learning, and they don't know what the benefits are. So it's up to us to educate them. And I'm hopefully we'll give you some ideas today on some things you can do to do that. And third, no delivery platform. So this is maybe more of an obstacle in the L&D group, but there is such a thing, and maybe you've heard this, as an EPSS. Somebody mentioned it in chat. That stands for either electronic or embedded performance support system. And Gottfredson and Mosher, for them, that's the epitome of performance support. You need to have a delivery platform that can deliver, allow you to develop and host performance support content and deliver it as needed at each point of need in the context of the workflow. And there's our software systems out there that do this. But we're not there yet, and we're not going to do that. And most people don't have an EPSS. So what am I proposing? I'm proposing transform your e-learning. If you've got an LMS full of e-learning, use your e-learning and turn it from a single purpose training course into a multi-purpose learning resource. So not just training, but learning for all the moments of need. So what is this solution that I'm proposing here? First of all, it's using a familiar form to create performance first learning. It's a pull solution, so users must proactively go get it to use it. It can be a lower cost solution than starting from scratch, maybe. And it could be delivered from a platform you already have. You don't have to go get that expensive EPSS. You could use maybe your LMS or your intranet, for example. And if you do it right, it can also serve as a proof of concept for performance support, something that you can show your stakeholders that will prove the value of performance first learning. So what is it not? It's not methodical performance focused ISD, and Gottfredson and Mosher have their own instructional systems design process for this kind of learning. Very great, it's a wonderful system, but that's not what we're doing here. We're doing a little bit of it, but not the whole thing. It's not a push solution. In other words, it won't be served up automatically to people. And of course, it's not true embedded performance support, as we've seen. But it can get you started down the path. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? So Gottfredson and Mosher have another cool tool besides the 5 moments of need to help us think about this, and that's their performance support pyramid, which starts, by the way, as everything they do, designing from the workflow back. Instead of designing from the knowledge forward, we're going to design from the workflow and then figure out what knowledge is needed. So here's the pyramid. And the pyramid has 6 types of content, going from simple and quick at the very top to deep and long at the bottom. So what do we mean by that? So the stuff at the top, the 3 types of content at the top, are things that can be accessed within the workflow. So worker does not need to jump out of what they're doing on their job in order to consume this content. It will help them as they do it. That's the idea. Context is at the very top, and context is the structure of this. It gives you, either the workflow, the work process, a workflow, a role, as we're doing in our case study today, the role. It could be a timeline, something that will give the structure, give the content an overall structure. Next is steps. These are procedures. How do I do something? And finally, at the top, supporting knowledge. And this supporting knowledge is not going to be deep reference. It's going to be any quick information or advice that supports or is necessary to completion of a task. And then at the bottom of the pyramid are 3 things that may pull the learner out of the workflow in order to consume. So reference resources like job aids, documentation, and so on. Learning resources. Now here's a place for formal learning. You can make formal learning a part of this. And it could be anything from a practice exercise to an e-learning tool. And at the very bottom are people resources, wikis, blogs, social networks, anything that you're talking to the experts on. So let's work through some examples of using this pyramid, and understand that one or more of these types of content could be used at a single moment of need. So here is an example from my case study course. So responsibilities of document owners. What type of content is this? Well, this one I'm going to give you. It's context. Okay, responsibilities, document owners. This is all about the document owner's role. And remember, role is an example of a context at the very top of the pyramid. I'm not going to have this slide in my new course because I'm going to use this instead, these responsibilities, as the organizing, part of the organizing structure of my redesigned course. And you could use this type of content, by the way, at both apply and new. Okay, this time I'm going to let you try to figure this one out. So take a look at this example, running reports, and then in chat, I would like you to tell me what type of content out of those 6 it is. And for extra credit, you can also put in which moment of need it meets. Okay. Great, I'm seeing everybody is saying steps so far, and apply and new. Well, you are right. You are absolutely correct. It's definitely steps. And definitely I put just apply here because I most normally use it during apply, but it would also be a way to learn the procedure, right? So it could also be new. Okay, let's try one more. This one I've given you the moments of need down here, but take a look at this about document types and tell me what type of content it is. This might be a little bit more difficult. So reference. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of reference. Okay, so this is kind of a gray area. I would call it supporting knowledge, and let me tell you why instead of reference. Because I, as a new document owner, and I have to create a new document, I'm going to have to know what the document types are when I set it up. And I may have to check a list of, okay, what are those document types? Because I'm going to have to pick one when I create my document. So I would say this could be used within the workflow, therefore supporting knowledge. Okay. Now, wonderful, you guys are, I appreciate you participating in this. I think you're doing great. How did I do this? How did I then take my course content and start converting it to performance first? Well, I used a very simple spreadsheet. And I first of all grabbed my whole course, the old course, and identified for each slide in my storyline file the type of content that was it represented. And I just picked, whatever seemed obvious there. Then I decided what types of content from the pyramid I was going to use in my redesign course. And so I picked these 4 steps: supporting knowledge, reference, and learning. So 4 out of the 6, what's missing? Context. I don't have that listed because remember, I'm going to use context as my organizer. And then at the other end, bottom of the pyramid, are the people resources. And I didn't use those mainly because there wasn't any in that course, in the original course. And then I simply, in my spreadsheet, matched the old course slides to the new type of content. So this is a real easy way to start figuring out how you're going to map old to new. But of course, it's not just a matter of reclassifying our pages and then maybe reshuffling them and moving them around. You're also going to have to redesign your solution to enable usability. So there's a little bit more to it. And usability, so here are my 3 aspects of usability: architecture, user interface, and content. And let's look at architecture first. So architecture, sometimes you'll hear information architecture, but it's the organization, labeling, and navigation of your solution. Remember that the workflow application comes first. Align topics to context, whether that's process, role, timeline, etc. Make labels telegraphic. They should be easy to understand. Include multiple navigation paths, which we'll see. And aim for 2-click, 10-second access. And that's the mantra of Gottfredson and Mosher for their performance support content. If you're using it in the workflow, you should be able to get to it within 2 clicks or 10 seconds as a rough measurement or a rough goal. Not all content you can do that with, but it should be at least for the stuff that supports work. So let's take a look at how the architecture is evidenced in the menus of my two courses. So in the original course, the menu entries are long. They're not telegraphic. The content is organized by very broad topics. The broad topics don't belong to any particular context, not a process or a business process or a role or anything. They're a mix. Now, here's the menu of my redesigned course. You can see that the menu entries are short. The content is organized by content type. So my 4 types of content. And there's an alternate navigation method available, and that is search. And this is search just through Storyline. Is there a context apparent here? You may not see it yet, but let's take a look at some more of the menu. And this is in, I've expanded a content section within each of my courses. So in the original course, this is under overview of the process library. Again, the topic entries are long and difficult to understand. They're repetitive. We have a lot of continued stuff. They're a mix of different content types. So we have navigating, which is a procedure, and then we have structure, which is a conceptual. Now compare that to the transformed course. The topic entries are all one type of content in a section. So how-to contains just how-to procedures. It's nested to provide a hierarchy. So under how-to, there's 3 different types of tasks: navigation, creating and revising, and searching and reporting. But then underneath, we can then divide into individual procedures or tasks. And it's labeled with short, direct, easy to understand words or phrases. So do you see the context here? So what I did was, within the how-to, we have the role responsibilities of the document owner. And within each responsibility, we have process or procedure. Okay. Now, next type of usability is the user interface, which is how the learner understands and interacts with the screens and their content. The user interface is implemented primarily, in the case of my courses today, layout, color, graphics, and text, visuals. But of course, an interface can also include sound and motion, which is not really a factor here, so I didn't really talk about that or use that very much. So we want to use formatting to indicate content hierarchy. We want to use visual cues to distinguish different types of content. We want to make navigation methods obvious and facilitate scanning and reading. So I am going to show you my new course. So let's take a look at that. So here is my redesigned Performance First course, and here's the menu that you've already seen. Each of the content type sections starts out with a title page. As you can see, I'm going to switch back to how-to and show you real quick some examples of how we can use the interface to make things easier for people to use, make the content easier for the users to use. So we can use things like size, like bolding, some diagrams that help people follow along, some screenshots. We can use call out or set off boxes for special types of knowledge, like we did here. and there, and then something here. So color is used a lot, but as you can see, the text is pretty short, or much shorter anyhow than it was. Now let me show you one other thing. So here, save a search. This is an how-to procedure, and here we have links, cross-reference links between content. So here I can go to the 3 other sections of my content when I'm in the how-to section. If I want to get more information, or I want to step out and read a document or watch some training, I can do that here. So for example, let's click that link to explanation. And I'm going to skip through the audio here. You notice that I took audio out of the other content, but I left it in here because it did have, the original audio did provide some additional information. So it's there. What do you see from instructions for how to navigate? So it tells you I can either select next or I can select previous. Now, what about previous? Previous, as used in this course, was not hard-coded. I did not hard-code any previous slide. Instead, it uses the default situation in Storyline, which is to go to the last slide viewed, which is great for this kind of application because I just came from a completely different section, not from the previous slide in this section. So therefore, when I do previous, I go back to where I started from. And finally, one other way to navigate, search. So let's say that I come in here and I want to find out about document expiration, and I'll type that in my search bar, and then it gives me every page in the course, no matter what section it is, that has the keyword expiration in it. So I can then click one of these, learn all about document expiration, and then close my search and go back to where I was before. Our last aspect of usability, which is content, and we want a format for the purpose of our content. So our 4 types of content. How did we do that? I'm going to take you back to our course. And here we are in our how-to. So that's what I meant. It says how-to here. So you can always see that as well as the color. So guidelines for how-to content. We want to address one discrete task. And as you can see, this is just one thing. How do I save a search here? 3 steps. Directions only, no fluff, not adding any kind of explanation or background information as your SMEs will want you to put in here. Don't put it in, just put in the facts. Matching illustration for visual context. Now they should be hopefully using this learning solution alongside the actual wind chill system. But if you can put in a screen grab, that'll help them make sure they're in the right place when they're in the real system. And then of course we have call outs and so on to the steps, and our links to our additional information if we want to get some more help or be able to see additional content that will help us do this job. No audio necessary, by the way, on this. I removed all the audio from any procedure because don't need it. Okay, now let's take a look at our explanation. So what do we need to do here? What is a guideline for this explanation type content? I want to do 1 topic per page and 1 page per topic. I want to be able to, since I'm going to use this in the workflow, I want it to be as short as possible and easy to consume. Brief and to the point. Only use illustrations if they're going to add value. And here I'll show you another one where I did use illustrations because they did add some value. But this pushed, of course, some of my content off the screen. I couldn't put it all on. So instead of going to another slide, I just did a pop-up box for the kind of secondary information. Okay, let's take a look at reference. So reference, again, documentation, job aids, FAQs, help, that kind of thing. Consider both internal to your organization and external outside your organization content. So here is the internal documentation that's available. Here are some external resources, some on the actual wind chill system and other stuff on the intranet that could be good for the document owner. System help. Be sure to include that here. If I need to get to my IT group, how do I talk to them? And user group and owners forum. So help is available in many different ways. Make sure you give everything that you can to the users. Okay, what about training? So like I said before, you can do conventional training assets such as your simulations, demonstrations and simulations. These are the screencasts. We can do system practice. This is something that you could just build right in here, and assuming a new user was coming in and they were being trained or under training or learning this new system, if there was a training environment for wind chill, which in my case study there actually was eventually, what was the document number that they had to find by doing this practice? So they'd actually go into the training environment, find it out, type it in, do a submit, and then they'd get feedback. Either they were correct or incorrect, and it would tell them what the real answer was and the easiest way to find it. Check your understanding. You can put your multiple choice questions in here. You could even put a full final assessment in here if you wanted. If you wanted to put in a scored assessment that people had to pass in order to get their credentials for the system, you could actually put it in here. You could put in a little e-learning module as well, maybe attacking or addressing one little part of the document owner's responsibilities. Okay, so again, see, training, says training up here, color. So they always know where they're at. If they're going back and forth between sections, they should always be able to have their bearings wherever they are. Likewise, if somebody's coming in and they just want to look up some reference information, they can come in and they can skip the how-to and go right to the reference section or the training section or the explanation section. So here's a key point. This course was not locked down, unlike the original course in our case study, which was. So people had to take the whole thing from beginning to end the first time through. And they could not get out of it until they did that. Here, doesn't matter. People use this resource for whatever they need it to be at any given time. All right, we need to make this solution accessible in the workflow. So that's the last thing. Once you've built this solution, we want to be able to have people be able to get to it when they need it, anytime. You want to determine if your LMS will serve. And if necessary, if your LMS is too difficult, there's too many steps to get around, use what you have. Use an alternate platform. So what might those alternate platforms be? So besides your LMS, you could use an intranet page or a web portal. For example, in this case, for this system, have a dedicated page in your intranet or even a whole portal that will have all the resources for it there, including your e-performance solution. If you have a knowledge base or knowledge management system like Confluence or Zoho or Inkling, maybe you could park your solution on that so people could get to it through there. Or a collaboration tool like even SharePoint or Box or Basecamp, Teams, Google Docs, or cloud storage and sharing, Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, whatever you happen to have. And mobile delivery, I've kind of put this off as a separate entity, but if mobile makes sense for your learners, if they are working with mobile devices, then develop a responsibly designed solution and make sure that they can access either from an intranet or download it as an app or launched automatically dependent on the learner's location. And finally, if you can reach the holy grail of an EPSS when you have a fully mature performance support system, that's what you want to be able to get to. And of course, there's a lot of software out there for this. The handout that you will get after the webinar will give you some places where you can find that information. Okay, so let me wrap up by just saying what the fundamental differences are between my first course, my before course, and my after course. So first of all, the original was a one-time learning event away from the job. The Transform course is used on the job whenever the learner needs support. The original course, the entire course had to be completed. Transform, no completion requirement, not necessary. If you have to get people, you have to have proof that people learned what they were learning, give them a test, but don't make them have to suffer through slide after slide of narration and presentation. Give them something that they can use when they need it. Content sequence was prescribed and enforced in the original course, the first time through at least. In the Transformed course, there was free access to all content from the start. Original course, all content had to be viewed. Transformed, learner gets to choose the content they need as needed. And the how-to content in the original course was out of context. It wasn't with the system. People were using it before they even saw the system. In the Transformed course, the how-to content is meant to be used in the context of using the actual wind chill system. So I truly believe that this is the way that all e-learning should be created, whether you call it performance support or not. Remember, learners are most open to learning when they're engaged in doing. Okay, so that's my soapbox. And Tom, I am going to hand it back over to you to wrap this up.
All right, thank you, Sue. Very good. You know, we got one question in here. I would like everybody to think about a question and send it in right now. But here's one from Pedro. He asks, what type of presentation would you advise using audio for? And he was asking that question right at the moment you were talking about how you didn't use audio for.
Yeah, so there is certainly a place for audio. I mean, I've made many courses with audio. So if you're basically giving somebody a presentation of content, and typically that's going to be conceptual content, learning, why does my company do things this way, or what's our policy for something else? It makes sense to replace what would normally maybe be an in-person instructor explaining this. If you're just having e-learning, then you have a narrator taking the spot of that instructor. So yeah, there's a place for it.
Good. While you guys are thinking of any other questions you might have, here's a couple questions I have of you folks. What do you think your key takeaways were from today's session? Put it in there and let us all know what you think. And here's the big question is, do you think this is something that this approach would work in your organization? Sue, one thing I thought about as you were presenting this is oftentimes developers get into tussles with SMEs, especially on technical content, because they want it all in there. And so as a learning professional, you're trying to think about what the learner needs, and they're thinking about, this is my baby, I need to get it all in there. This seems like a good way to get around that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and of course that battle will continue to be fought. And believe me, I know, because I've fought that battle many, many times. And coming from the consulting side, I usually had to give in eventually, even if I would push back a couple of times, but would usually have to give in. But if you're internal in an organization, you've got to explain to people to SMEs, why people don't need all the information that's in the head of that SME, and try to explain the rationale by that doing is the best way to learn. And I think that, if you approach e-learning from this viewpoint, from this vantage point, you will be better able to do that. And especially if you can create one piece of this kind of content as a proof of concept, do it and show it and use it, and have users react to it and maybe get some metrics from it, you'll be able to start convincing people that it makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. And Pedro, again, thinks that maybe this would be difficult to have this kind of e-learning accessible through their LMS, but it gives them you've given them some ideas here to look at other ways to serve it up. And to your last point, maybe showing a proof of concept might convince other people that hold the purse strings that maybe there's technology out there that we could use that makes this a little better. Not in every situation, but in many situations.
And absolutely, and you want to be able to use what you have. Don't let a lack of a fancy performance support system keep you from trying this. Use what you've got.
Great. And I see Jesse here says that they're looking into an application called Go1 as an integration to their LMS within Teams, and this may be the closest thing.
Fantastic. I'm not familiar with that, but so thank you.
Yeah, good. Well, folks, if you have any other questions or you want to ping Sue here, her contact information is here. Feel free to do that. What I want to do is just thank you all for joining today. We appreciate you coming to our webinars, and certainly reach out to Sue or myself if you have any other further thoughts or comments. Remember that immediately following the webinar, you're going to receive that email for the link to the survey, and please fill that out if you would. And then we will send the recording of this session early next week, along with the YouTube link and the slide deck. So as always, thank you for joining. Thank you, Sue. And until next time, thanks for coming, and we hope to see you again at another Innovative Learning Group webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.